Maya Collins watched the rain streak down the floor-to-ceiling windows of Aurelio as her hands trembled around the water pitcher. 22 years old and she still couldn't look customers in the eye. The other servers called her Ghost Girl because she moved through the restaurant like she wasn't really there. They didn't know that was exactly how she wanted it. They didn't know what happened when people actually saw her. Before we continue, please subscribe, like, comment and turn on the notification bell so you get notified anytime a new video is posted. The hostess's voice crackled through Maya's earpiece. VIP Table 7. Julian Moretti just walked in with his mother. Do not mess this up. Maya's stomach dropped. Julian Moretti. The billionaire who owned half of Manhattan's tech sector and the other half of her nightmares. Not because she knew him, but because men like him reminded her of everything she'd lost. Everything that had been stolen from her 3 years ago when her fingers still knew how to create beauty instead of just carrying plates. She grabbed her notepad and forced herself toward table 7. The man sitting there looked like he'd been carved from marble and money. Dark suit. Darker eyes. The kind of face that appeared on magazine covers with headlines like, "The Most Dangerous Man in Tech." But Maya barely glanced at him. Her attention locked on the woman beside him. Elena Moretti sat with the rigid posture of someone trying to hold themselves together. Her silver hair was perfect. Her dress was elegant. But her eyes were empty in a way Maya recognized too well. The look of someone trapped inside their own silence. "Good evening," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. "Can I start you with drinks?" Julian's jaw tightened. "My mother will have sparkling water. I'll take scotch." "Neat." Maya nodded and started to turn when she noticed Elena's hands moving. Not randomly. Deliberately. The movements were shaky but intentional. She was trying to sign something but her son wasn't watching. He was already scrolling through his phone like the rest of the world didn't exist. Maya's heart stopped. She knew those signs. Not American Sign Language. Something older. Something most people had never even heard of. It was Dalcroze eurythmic signing, a European method that combined music theory with sign language so deaf musicians could feel and communicate rhythm. Maya had learned it during her training at Juilliard before everything fell apart. Elena's hands were asking a question. "Is there music playing?" Without thinking, Maya knelt beside the table. Her hand moved to the wooden surface and she tapped 3 times. Slow. Deliberate. The opening notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune in Morse-like rhythm. Then her hands began to move in the old signs, painting the melody in the air between them. The entire restaurant seemed to stop breathing. Elena's eyes went wide. Her hands flew to her mouth. Then slowly, shakily, she reached out and placed her palm flat on the table. Maya tapped again, this time the full phrase, letting the vibration travel through the wood. Elena's eyes filled with tears as she signed back. "I can feel it. I can feel the music." Julian's phone clattered to the table. What the hell is happening? But Maya was already standing, backing away, panic flooding her veins. She'd made herself visible. She'd broken her own first rule. Never let them see what you can do. Never let them know who you used to be. "I'm sorry," Maya stammered. "I'll get your drinks." She fled to the bar, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the glasses. Behind her, she could feel Julian's eyes burning into her back like a brand. She'd made a mistake. A terrible, irreversible mistake. The rest of the dinner service passed in a blur. Maya avoided table 7 completely, sending other servers to handle them. But when Julian and his mother finally left, the hostess appeared at Maya's side with an envelope. "Mr. Moretti left this for you. Said to make sure you got it personally." Inside was a check. $5,000. And a business card with a handwritten note on the back. "My office. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. This is not optional. James." Maya didn't sleep that night. She knew what happened when powerful men got curious. She'd learned that lesson the hard way 3 years ago when her compositions had been stolen, her family blacklisted, and her entire future erased by people who had more money than morals. Julian Moretti was exactly the kind of man who could destroy what little remained of her life if he decided to dig into her past. But at 1:45 p.m. the next day, Maya found herself standing outside Moretti Tower anyway. The building stretched toward the sky like a glass knife, reflecting the clouds and making her feel impossibly small. She almost turned around. Almost ran. But then she thought of Elena's face when she'd felt the music, and something in Maya's chest ached with a feeling she'd thought was dead. The elevator ride to the 63rd floor felt like ascending to her own execution. Julian's assistant, a woman with a smile sharp enough to cut, led Maya through halls lined with modern art worth more than Maya would earn in 10 lifetimes. The office door opened and there he was. Julian stood at the window, his back to her, hands in his pockets. "Sit down, Miss Collins. How do you know my name?" He turned and his expression was unreadable. "I know everything about you now. Or at least I know what you tried very hard to hide." He picked up a folder from his desk and dropped it in front of her. "Maya Collins. Born in Boston. Accepted to Juilliard at age 16. Youngest pianist in your class. Composed 3 original pieces that were submitted to the International New Composers Competition. And then you disappeared." Maya's blood turned to ice. "That was a long time ago. 3 years." Julian's voice was quiet but sharp. "You vanished right after a scandal involving stolen compositions. A company called Harmonia Rights Management was accused of stealing work from young artists and reselling it under different names. Your family sued. You lost. Then your recordings were scrubbed from the internet and you became a ghost." He paused. "What you don't know is that Harmonia is a subsidiary of a shell corporation that my father's company acquired 6 months before he died. Which means I own the company that destroyed your career." The room tilted. Maya gripped the chair to keep from falling. "You're telling me you're responsible?" "I'm telling you I didn't know. But I do now." Julian sat on the edge of his desk, his eyes locked on hers. "And I'm telling you my mother hasn't smiled like she did last night since my father died 2 years ago. She had a stroke 6 months ago that left her deaf. She's been disappearing inside herself ever since. But you brought her back for 5 minutes with your hands and a table." His voice cracked slightly. "So I need to know where you learned that signing method and why a Juilliard-trained prodigy is working as a waitress." Maya wanted to lie, wanted to run. But something in Julian's face stopped her. He didn't look angry. He looked devastated. "My grandmother was deaf," Maya said quietly. "She taught me Dalcroze signing when I was young so we could share music together. When I went to Juilliard I studied it formally because I wanted to teach deaf children someday." Her voice broke. "But then Harmonia stole my compositions. My family spent everything we had trying to fight them. We lost. My mother got sick from the stress. My father works 3 jobs now just to keep us afloat. And I learned that if you're talented and poor, powerful people will take everything you create and leave you with nothing." Silence filled the office like smoke. "Come to my mother's house this weekend," Julian said finally. "Teach her what you did at the restaurant. Help her find her way back to music." "Why would I do that?" "Because I'll pay you $50,000. He held up a hand before she could speak. "And because I'm going to audit every acquisition my father ever made. If Harmonia stole from you, they stole from others. I'm going to find out who knew and who covered it up. But I need time. And I need my mother to have a reason to keep fighting." Maya should have said no. Should have walked away. But she thought of Elena's tears and her own mother's tired face and nodded before she could stop herself. That Saturday, a black car picked Maya up and drove her to an estate that looked like it belonged in a European fairy tale. Elena met her at the door, her face lighting up the moment she saw Maya. Through slow, careful signing, Maya explained what she wanted to try. They spent the afternoon in Elena's music room, a space filled with instruments that hadn't been touched in months. Maya placed Elena's hands on a grand piano and played single notes, letting the vibrations travel through the wood into Elena's palms. Then she taught her to sign the notes back, creating a language of feeling rather than sound. Elena wept. But this time they were tears of joy. Over the next 3 weeks, Maya came every Saturday. She and Elena developed their own rhythm. They didn't just work on music. They talked, or rather signed, about loss and grief and the feeling of being invisible. Elena told Maya about watching her husband's business partner, Victor Castellane, take over more and more of the company after her husband's death. How she tried to warn Julian but couldn't make him understand without her voice. And Maya told Elena about the night she'd played her final composition for the Juilliard board, only to hear it on the radio a month later under someone else's name. About the lawyers who'd crushed her family with paperwork. About learning to be invisible because it hurt less than being seen. Meanwhile, Julian was unraveling his father's empire thread by thread. Late nights in his office revealed a pattern of acquisitions that weren't just business. They were theft dressed in legal language. Harmonia Rights Management had been systematically stealing from young artists for a decade. And the man behind it all was Victor Castellane, his father's oldest friend and current chief operating officer. The night Julian found the final piece of evidence, he called Maya. "I need you to come to the office." "No. There's something you have to see." When Maya arrived, Julian's office looked like a war room. Documents covered every surface. His tie was loose, his hair disheveled. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "I found your compositions," he said quietly, turning his computer screen toward her. "All 3 of them. Registered under fake names. Sold to film studios and advertising agencies for millions. You were 15 when you wrote these, Maya. 15. And they stole them." Maya's legs buckled. Julian caught her before she hit the floor, guiding her to a chair. She stared at the screen, seeing her own musical notations, her own soul translated into notes, credited to people she'd never heard of. "There's more," Julian said, his voice hard. "Victor Castellane ran the entire operation. And my mother knew." "What?" Julian pulled up an email. It was dated 3 days before Elena's stroke. She'd written to Victor, threatening to expose him to Julian if he didn't stop. His response was brief: "You're a deaf woman with no proof. No one will believe you. Stay quiet or your son loses everything." "She tried to stop him," Julian said, his voice breaking. "And the stress caused her stroke. She's been trapped with this secret for months because she lost her voice before she could tell me the truth." Maya felt something inside her chest crack open. All this time, Elena had been carrying the weight of knowing her husband's partner was a monster. No wonder she'd looked so lost. "What are you going to do?" Maya asked. Julian's eyes went cold. "I'm going to destroy him. Legally. Publicly. Completely. But I need your help. I need you to testify. I need you to be willing to be seen again." Terror flooded Maya's body. "If I do that, everyone will know what happened. My family will be dragged through it all over again. Your family will finally get justice." Julian knelt in front of her, his hands on the arms of her chair. "And every artist Victor stole from will get their work back. Their names back. Their lives back." He paused. "You don't have to be invisible anymore, Maya. You never did." The next 3 days were a whirlwind. Julian's lawyers prepared an airtight case. Maya gave her statement, her hands shaking so badly she could barely sign her name. Elena sat beside her the entire time, holding her hand, giving her strength through touch alone. When they finally confronted Victor in the boardroom, his face went white. "You can't prove any of this." Julian dropped a folder on the table. "Emails. Bank records. Testimonies from 17 artists you stole from. And a recording of you threatening my mother." He leaned forward. "You're finished, Victor. The only question is whether you resign quietly or I have you arrested in front of the entire company." Victor tried to bluster. Tried to threaten. But when Julian played the recording of Victor's threat to Elena, the man crumbled. He resigned that afternoon. Julian held a company-wide meeting, explaining everything, announcing a new division dedicated to finding and compensating artists who'd been stolen from. The press called it the biggest corporate scandal of the decade. But for Maya, the real moment came a week later. Julian had arranged for her to perform at a small private venue. Not a concert hall. Just a room with a piano and 50 people who'd been invited specifically because they'd supported young artists in the past. Elena sat in the front row. As Maya's fingers touched the keys for the first time in 3 years, she felt Elena's hand on the piano's side, feeling every vibration. And Maya played. Not the stolen compositions. Something new. Something born from pain and silence and the terrifying beauty of being seen. When she finished, the room was silent for 3 heartbeats. Then Elena stood and signed, her movements clear and strong. "I feel every note. And they are yours." The applause was deafening. Afterward, Julian found Maya outside, staring at the city lights. "What happens now?" he asked. Maya turned to him, and for the first time in 3 years she didn't look away. "I don't know. I spent so long hiding that I forgot what it feels like to exist in the world." "Then maybe it's time to remember." Julian's voice was soft. "My mother wants you to work with her permanently. Teach deaf students the way you taught her. I've already set up funding for a program." He paused. "And I'm stepping down as CEO." "What? Why?" Because I inherited an empire built partially on theft, and I can't lead it until I've dismantled every corrupt piece my father left behind. It'll take years. Maybe decades. He smiled, but it was sad. Turns out the quietest people really do carry the most powerful truths. My mother tried to tell me. You showed me. Now I have to fix it. Maya felt something shift in her chest. Not quite hope, but something close. Your mother told me something yesterday. She said silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the space where truth gets loud enough to hear. Julian nodded. She's right. He held out his hand. So what do you say, Maya Collins? Ready to stop being invisible? Maya looked at his hand. At the city stretching out before them. At the possibility of a life where she didn't have to hide. Then she thought of Elena's tears of joy and her own mother's tired smile and the 17 other artists who'd gotten their names back. She reached out and took his hand. But as they stood there, Maya's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations on your victory. But you should know Victor wasn't working alone. There are others. And they're very interested in meeting the girl who brought down Harmonia. A friend. Maya's blood went cold. She showed Julian the message. His jaw tightened. Then I guess we're not done yet. What do we do? Julian looked at her, and in his eyes she saw something that matched the feeling growing in her chest. Not fear. But determination. We find out who they are. We expose them too. And we don't stop until every stolen voice gets heard. He paused. But I can't do this alone. I need someone who understands what it costs to be silenced. Someone brave enough to fight back. Maya thought about the girl she'd been 3 years ago, talented and terrified. Then she thought about the woman she was becoming, scarred but strong. Elena had found her voice again through vibrations and signs. Maya had found hers through truth and music. Now someone else was threatening to take it away. How deep does this go? Maya asked quietly. I don't know yet. But if there's a network of people stealing from artists, if Victor was just one piece of something bigger. Julian's voice trailed off. This could be dangerous, Maya. If you walk away now, I wouldn't blame you. Maya looked back through the window at the venue where she'd just performed. At the piano that had given her back her soul. At Elena, who was signing animatedly with other guests. Alive again in a way she hadn't been in years. I spent 3 years being afraid, Maya said slowly. 3 years making myself small so no one would hurt me again. He turned to Julian. I'm done being afraid. Even if this gets worse before it gets better? Maya thought of her stolen compositions. Of her mother's illness. Of every artist who'd been crushed by powerful people who thought they could take whatever they wanted. Especially then. Julian's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went pale. When? Are you sure? Don't touch anything. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at Maya. Someone broke into my office tonight. They took the backup files on Harmonia. All the evidence we hadn't turned over to the police yet. How is that possible? Don't you have security? The best money can buy. Which means whoever did this had inside help. Julian's eyes went dark. This is bigger than Victor. And now they know we're coming for them. Maya's hands trembled, but she forced them still. So what's our next move? That depends. Julian stepped closer. Are you sure you want a next move? Because once we start digging into this, there's no going back. These people have already proven they'll steal, lie, and destroy lives to protect their operation. If they broke into my office, they're willing to do worse. Maya thought about running. About going back to being a waitress who nobody noticed. About safety and silence and invisibility. It would be so easy. But then she thought about Elena's face when she'd felt music again. About the 17 other artists who'd gotten their names back. About every scared kid with talent who might be next if someone didn't stop these people. She looked Julian in the eye and didn't flinch. I want justice. Not just for me. For everyone they've hurt and everyone they're going to hurt if we walk away. Her voice steadied. So yes. I'm sure. Julian studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right then. First thing tomorrow we start tracing every connection Victor had. Every deal, every partnership, every suspicious acquisition. We follow the money until we find who's pulling the strings. And if they come after us first? Julian's smile was sharp and cold. Then we make sure we're ready. As they walked back toward the venue, Maya's phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. Smart girl. But bravery and stupidity often look the same. Ask yourself, is exposing the truth worth losing everything you just got back? You have 48 hours to decide if you want to keep digging. After that, the choice won't be yours anymore. Choose wisely, little ghost. Maya stopped walking. Her heart hammered against her ribs. 48 hours. 2 days to decide if she was willing to risk the fragile new life she'd started to build. 2 days to choose between safety and truth. She looked at Julian, who was already making calls, his face set with determination. Then she looked back at the venue where Elena was teaching another guest some basic Dalcroze signs, her face glowing with purpose. Maya had been invisible for 3 years. She'd been safe and silent and slowly dying inside. Now she had a choice. She could disappear again, protect herself, live small. Or she could fight for every artist who'd been silenced, even if it meant becoming a target. The message on her phone seemed to pulse with threat. 48 hours. Choose wisely. Maya took a deep breath, her finger hovering over the keyboard. She could text back. Could ask questions. Could try to negotiate or understand who was threatening her. Instead, she deleted the message and turned off her phone. Julian, she called out. He looked back at her, his phone still pressed to his ear. I don't need 48 hours. He covered the phone. What? Whoever sent that message wants me scared. Wants me to spend 2 days paralyzed trying to decide if truth is worth the cost. Maya walked toward him, her spine straight, her voice clear. But I already know the answer. It is. So let's not give them 48 hours to prepare. Let's start now. Julian's eyes widened slightly. Then a slow smile spread across his face. Now. Right now. Tonight. While they think they've got us afraid and off balance. Maya felt something fierce and bright burning in her chest. We hit them first. Julian lowered his phone completely. You realize this means war. Good, Maya said. I've been silent long enough. For a moment they just stood there in the Manhattan night, two people who'd lost everything once and refused to lose it again. Behind them, through the window, Elena was laughing. Actually laughing as she signed with new friends. Above them, Moretti Tower stretched toward the stars, filled with secrets waiting to be exposed. And somewhere in the darkness, enemies were watching, waiting for them to be afraid. But Maya Collins was done being the ghost girl. She was done hiding. And she was done letting powerful people win just because they'd always won before. Julian held out his hand one more time. Partners. Maya took it without hesitation. Partners. Then let's go burn their empire down. They turned together toward the car, toward the fight, toward whatever came next. Neither of them knew if they'd win. Neither of them knew how deep the corruption went or how dangerous their enemies really were. Neither of them knew if the truth would be enough to protect them from people who'd already proven they'd do anything to stay hidden. But they walked forward anyway. And in that moment, with the city lights blazing around them and Elena's laughter echoing behind them and 48 hours ticking down to something neither of them could predict, Maya realized something important. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't safe. But for the first time in 3 years she was truly, completely alive. The question was, would that be enough to survive what came next? The car door opened. Julian gestured for her to get in. Maya looked one last time at the venue, at the piano where she'd reclaimed her voice, at the life she'd just started to rebuild. Then she got in the car. Behind them, Maya's discarded phone buzzed one final time on the sidewalk. A new message appeared on the dark screen. Wrong choice, little ghost. Now you'll learn why some secrets should stay buried. See you soon. But Maya didn't see it. She was already gone, racing toward a truth she couldn't yet see, with a partner she barely knew, against enemies whose faces were still hidden in shadow. The war for her voice, for every stolen voice, had just begun. And neither she nor Julian had any idea just how much it would cost them before the end.